Welcome back to the Loose and Groovy Baseball Show. This is the 14th episode. Kind of crazy that we've already hit number 14. So we haven't had a podcast since before Christmas. So we've had a nice little break to just enjoy our time with our family, enjoy our time away from college, away from the books. So that's been nice. In terms of baseball, there has been a decent amount of moves since we last recorded. But we would definitely say that things have started to slow down after the winter meetings hit. Stuff really usually kind of simmers down. So now there's a move every like few days, and a major move every like week. So how you doing, Trav?
I'm doing good. It's the end of I you don't have any classes tomorrow, right? I take it.
No, no
Yeah,
class.
so end of the week for both of us, end of our first week back. I've been kind of digging into these moves the past couple days and they've been fun. It's interesting what a lot of teams are doing and a lot of them make me excited and some of them maybe you scratch your head your bit, but it's just fun to kind of look into these, kind of see what teams are thinking. But yeah, end of the week, I'm happy to be here, happy to be doing this, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that sounds good. So today we're just gonna go through the different signings or trades or re-signings. We're first gonna start off with Hyeseong Kim. So if you wanna get us started off, Trav.
Yeah, so this was kind of one of the big names coming from international signings. And not that he's, amazing, kind of like I'm trying like yeah, it's not going to be like a Ohtani signing or a Yamamoto signing, but this was kind of one of the bigger names coming from the KBO this year. So the contract, it's a 3-year deal, $12.5 million. So they got him for pretty cheap. And there is going to be a 2-year club option in 2028 and 2029. So the Dodgers can make it a 5-year deal if they did want to. And now we can kind of look after this. We can kind of merge it with what happened after now. And Gavin Lux was traded as well to Cincinnati. Kind of an odd team, which is kind of it was just based on the rumors we were hearing. It was maybe a Yankees, maybe a Mariners, but he ended up going to Cincinnati. So we'll kind of merge both of these into one. But so Hyeseong Kim, he is definitely a contact guy, I guess is probably the best way you could put it. He's super quick. He gets a lot of steals. I believe he batted above 300 in almost all of his seasons in the KBO. Not a lot of power, which I think concerns me a lot because the numbers for Ha-Seong Kim when he came over, I think he hit 30 home runs in the KBO in his last season. And don't know the max number off the top of my head for what he got um since moving over, but he
I
hasn't
believe 17
17.
bombs.
So he hasn't really come close to that number again. And I think Hyeseong Kim had 11 in his last season, this past season over there. And so now coming over, it's like, okay, are we really expecting this guy to maybe even hit more than like 5 home runs? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But I don't think that's what the Dodgers are signing him for. And again, it's a cheap contract. He's got really great defense. He'll probably play mostly at second, but can also play short. We posted some of his highlights on our Instagram, and he definitely is really good with the glove and he can make some great plays. Um, the Dodgers, I guess I wouldn't call this a problem, but they do have a bit of an infield log jam right now, and it was worse before they moved off Lux. But so for now, it'll be Kim, Miguel Rojas is still there. They still have Chris Taylor. That's kind of, Dodgers fans, I think, are kind of a mixed bag on that one. What do they do with him? Tommy Edman, probably not going to be his primary spot. I think he's going to stick in center, but he could also rotate into the infield. So I don't think Kim is going to be like everyday starter second baseman. I think it'll be more like I don't know how many games he'll play, but I think he'll kind of plug and play, and we'll see him a decent amount, but maybe not a lot. And it could be a thing where it just kind of takes time for him to get acclimated to MLB, seeing MLB pitchers, being over in America and everything like that. So I think for the first year, I'm not expecting too much, but I'm excited to watch him play. I hope he can transfer over all those skills that he brought. And I think it's a good contract for the Dodgers. The contract grade I gave a 9 out of 10. I don't have too many issues with it. It's cheap. And for a player like this, I think you know what you're getting, and I think it kind of works out that way. Fit grade, I said 8 out of 10. The only reason I said this was just because it's, again, a little bit crowded now in the infield, and I'll be curious to see how they balance out the playing time between, the 3, 4 players that I listed. That'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. But yeah, before we go on to Lux, I'll give it back to you in case you have anything to add.
Yeah, so I just looked up his stats real quick while you're talking. So his last 4 years, he has bet over 300. So 304, 318, 335, and 326. So those first couple years between 21 and 22, um, not much power at all, 3 home runs and then 4 home runs with some doubles in there. His power has started to get a lot higher, his slugging especially. Not so much the home runs, with 7 home runs in 23 and then 11 in 24. I think it's safe to say you can cut the home runs in half. So, like you said, I think 5 or 6 at the most, honestly, is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Um, but with that defense, you can't really be mad at this. And I love the contract for them. I said 10 out of 10 for the contract because 3 years at that value. And then the club options, I love the club options. They're super team friendly. You can just dump them off if you have to. Or if they're playing lights out and he plays good defense and he gives you like that some slugging with that high batting average, I feel like you can't go wrong with that. In terms of where he's going to play, right now Fangraphs has him slotted as the starting second baseman. It is interesting with Rojas and Taylor. Rojas is 36 years old and Taylor's almost he's going into his age 35 season, so I feel like you can't really expect those guys to start and go out there every day and play. So this is definitely a great pickup. We kind of expect the Dodgers to have this like superpower of a team at every single position, and I think that's we need to quit expecting that. So when we see a guy that's not like the best of the best, it kind of
Yeah,
surprises us.
yeah.
But overall, it's still a very good move, and it definitely helped their team out a lot.
Yeah, I think, and now moving on to like, I guess Gavin Lux. I don't really know if it's going to be an upgrade or the same kind of situation with Lux. They have similar kind of playing styles, I guess. I know Kim's defense is a lot better than Lux. The offensive output, maybe Lux has the upper hand there, maybe a little bit more, so it might be an even split here. Um, but yeah, so Gavin Lux was then after this trade moved to Cincinnati. What the Dodgers got back was outfielder Mike Sirota. He was a third round pick last year. He was actually supposed to go in the first round, and I think he had a really slow start to his last season. I don't know what school he went to, but he had a really slow start that kind of tanked his stock, but he was a third round pick. From what I read, it looks like a 2020 potential at the pros, so 20 home runs, 20 bags. He's got really good speed. The primary way they think that he's going to get up is his defense out in center field. They think that's kind of going to be his calling card, and he'll work his way up through that. He slots in at Dodgers number 22 in the organization, so it's a good guy to get. He won't be in the big leagues for a couple years probably, but he might come up, play some good defense, and maybe have a little bit of hit to him as well. His highest scouting grades were run and field, so like I said, I think defense is going to be his calling card there. They also did get a competitive balanced draft pick, and that's going to be right now it's pick number 37. And something I didn't know is the Dodgers didn't have a first round pick. So this is now their highest pick heading into next year. So I
Wow.
think that's actually pretty good for them.
Mhm.
So for the package they got back, Lux has 2 years left of control. So I think it's pretty even to be honest with you. But now kind of diving into like the Reds aspect of this. So I read a couple articles here and there, and from last season, the Reds, it sounds like a lot of injury concerns in the infield, and they were kind of signing guys and putting guys in spots that maybe they weren't the most comfortable or guys that probably shouldn't be on a big league team. I know Ty France was there at some point, and then you have the whole Noelvi Marte issues. So the Reds were kind of in a bad spot last year with that, just because of injuries and stuff like that. So you also move off Jonathan India, so you do kind of have a bit of a hole here at second base, and they add Gavin Lux. So Lux, I know I've talked to Parker about this, and I didn't think Lux was much of an offensive threat, I guess you could say, but Lux actually had a very strong second half last season. Started off a bit slow, but that was coming off an ACL injury, so expected. But Lux was super strong in the second half. And now you're going to Cincinnati, which is a much more hitter-friendly ballpark. The Reds also needed a lefty bat in the lineup very badly, so that's good for Lux right there. And now you kind of have to decide what you're going to do with the infield. So the way they were making it sound is they want to use Lux as like a super utility guy, and that could mean playing second, that could mean playing outfield, maybe he could playing third as well. So we'll see what they decide to do with him. He could play all over. They could stick him at second. I don't really know. Um, But then you have Matt McLean, who's still here. Where are you going to slide him in? That's something you have to think about. So a lot of interesting things they could do here. They still are going to have, so the infield will be, I think it'll be Jamer Candelario at third, Elliott short,
Mhm.
obviously, and then some combination of Lux, McLean at second, maybe. And then you have Christian Encarnacion Strand at first. So it's better. And then you still have Noelvi Marte. He was coming off, he had a PED suspension last season, I think.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a good year at all. So, are you going to give him some run? I don't know. But I think it's a good, it's a good get because it helps you out a lot and just gives you kind of hopefully consistency, health,
Mhm.
and a decent bat here. And again, you fill kind of a hole left by Jonathan India here. So yeah, I guess my grades for the red side an A. I don't really have any problems with this deal. You give up a prospect that, he's going to be probably a good prospect, but for now, I don't think you're really hurting too much from that and a draft pick. Maybe that hurts a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think you're happy to get Gavin Lux here and for 2 more years. And if he likes it, maybe he'll resign there. We'll have to see how the next 2 years go for him. The Dodgers, I gave a B plus. I don't think it was necessary to move off of Lux here. I don't think it's a bad move at all, but I think you maybe could have held on to Lux for another year here and trade him the next year, and maybe see how it works out between him and Kim and Vargas and all the other guys you have there. The other option was maybe move off of Chris Taylor here. Chris Taylor is a guy, I don't think a lot of Dodgers fans like him, and he hasn't had, the best of seasons for a while now, and maybe that was the better move here instead of moving off of Lux, who's still a young guy and
Mhm.
he's homegrown too. So I gave him a B plus, but I think for both sides it's a good move. I'm not really too upset by either team doing this move, and I think it benefits both of them for different reasons. So
Yeah. For Lux, in terms of the Dodgers, I said I gave him a B. It does help the log jam, but kind of similar to what you were saying. I would rather move off Rojas, an aging Rojas or an aging Chris Taylor than Lux. Lux still has, in my eyes, a little bit of upside. I know everybody's been looking for that because he was such a high prospect, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. But he's still an above average player, while Rojas and especially Chris Taylor's well below average, especially with the bat now. So not a huge fan of that, but I do get you want to get some higher draft picks through. I didn't know that they didn't have a first round draft pick, which is crazy to me. So
yeah.
I guess they want to build a farm system. They still don't. I think isn't it top 32 or something first round?
For for a draft pick, like the
Yeah,
first
top
round.
30 or
Yeah,
something.
I don't really know. I still think I think it is a second round pick. I don't think it's a first, but it's higher
Yeah.
than the one they had.
Right.
So or
So
low.
yeah, a B for them. In terms of the Reds, I do like it a lot. Um, as of if it's McLean or Lux at second, or if they're going to share time, I don't want to take any time from McLean. I would like him to play if he's healthy. I know he was not healthy last year, the full year, but I don't want to take any runway away from him. So if he can play second completely, right now they have Lux slotted as the opening day DH, which I feel like that's nice because while he can be the super utility guy, starting him at DH, and then if somebody happens to get hurt in the season because injuries always happens, one of those, like whether it's McLean or Ellie or TJ Friedel or just one of the outfielders, if one of those guys goes down, you have Lux ready. So I do like that a lot, and they need offense bad. Um, yeah. So overall for Reds, I said A. I got no problem with it. And I think it definitely improves their team, but they do need a lot more, I would say.
I really hope they don't slide in Lux at DH. I feel like that doesn't make any
I
sense.
mean, isn't
Not
it better than second? I don't think you can take McLean. His first year was amazing. I don't want him sharing time with McLean. If
Well,
I'm
yeah, and what they put McLean in center in the Arizona Fall League, and they'll probably do something similar in spring training, whether that's having him play third or playing some more center field. Because right now, otherwise in center field, it's TJ Friedel and Drake Fraley's out and right. So you could probably make some combination. I think you're right. I don't want them sharing time either, but I think there's a scenario where Lux doesn't have to DH, and you could put McLean somewhere else in the field, because you could have Stevenson DH. And then Trevino, they signed Jose Trevino so he can catch when he does that, and then Stevenson can catch the other times. But Encarnacion Strand and Candelario it's probably one of the lower end corner defensive spots you can have right
Yeah.
now. They're both just not great there.
No.
And Candelario's offensive production hasn't been great either. So I think you need to do something else with the DH spot, and I don't think he's going to play DH. But I think there's a universe where McLean and Lux can share the field at different spots without
Yeah.
sacrificing either one of their times. So
Okay. So now, I guess I'll get us kickstarted
yeah,
Tigers move. So Torres, the Tigers on a 1 year, 15 mil contract. And just to kind of give like a little context to this, so he did get some other long term as in like 3 to 4 year contracts from other people, but he didn't take them because his biggest thing was betting on himself. He wants to play this 1 year, have a good year, and then hit it even bigger than he did this year. So I kind of like that. As a Tigers fan, I like to see a guy like bet on himself like that, and you know that he's gonna like put his full effort in. If he's like your contract year, that's the year that you're gonna try the hardest. So
yeah,
that's nice to hear. In terms of the contract rank, I was like between an 8 or 9. I mean, he had a good year last year. I'm gonna pull up his stats real quick. I should have had him up, but
I can pull him up. You can keep
yeah,
going.
if you want to go through his stats, but um, yeah, 8 or 9 out of 10. I got no problem with it. The fact that we paid Alex Cobb the same amount of money makes this contract seem a lot better. Um, in terms of fit, I said 7 out of 10. The Tigers need offense, and they got a guy that's gonna bring the offense. So I do like that aspect of it. It does worry me a little bit that this is gonna hurt our Bregman or Anthony Santander sweepstakes. Like as Tiger fans, we're kind of used to acting like we're going after the big guys and then settling for the smaller guys just to kind of satisfy the fans so they don't get mad. So I'm hoping that's not the case in this with this contract. Also, I don't know. The Tigers fans are so split on this. You're either totally for him or against him. I'm not really ready to move off Torque completely. I know we could still keep him and he could still play like a third of the at-bats or half the at-bats as he did last year, but originally, this might be crazy to you. It was crazy to me, but Fangraphs projected him to have between like 23 and 25 home runs. That
Torque?
was before the trade or before the Torres.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
When Torque was slotted to start at first base, he was projected mid-20s home runs with a mid 700 OPS and an OPS plus at like 103 or 105. So he was projected to be above average, which
Yeah.
is crazy to me with how bad he's been the past few years. So I don't know. I'm not ready to
Maybe
give
the
up on that.
underlying metrics or something are saying it'll be better next year. I
I,
don't know. I don't look too much in the projected numbers, but like maybe that's
I don't
something.
either. I think I don't like him that much, but just seeing that kind of made me like, okay, like why are we giving up on a guy that's supposed to hit at least 20 home runs? But he probably would, if we played him all year, he'd probably have 11 home runs and like bat
Yeah,
205
right. And go
and
back
stuff.
down to Toledo. So
Yeah. I also don't like Colt Keith going to first base. I would have liked to keep him at second. He's
I'm
not.
I'm gonna touch on this, but you can keep going.
Yeah. I'll just keep it at that. He was not a bad defender at all. At the beginning of the year, he was a great defender, and he kind of fell off a little bit. I don't know if he got lucky at the beginning or if he got unlucky at the end, but I'm not a huge fan of that. But I think it all just comes down to we want offense and we got it. So 7 out of 10.
Yeah, so we've talked about this one too, and I've told you I don't like it. I still don't like it. So Gleyber is last season, he had a 104 WRC plus, so slightly above average. 257 average, 330 on base, 378 slug. He had a 1.7 F4 with 15 home runs. So I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. He's had better seasons. Like 23, he was a 120 WRC plus.
Mhm.
2019, 125. Um, oh wow, he hit 38 home runs in 2019.
Yeah,
Okay, I
that
didn't
was
know
the juice
that.
ball year.
Okay. So 24, 25, and 2022, 23 though. So it is there, and maybe last year was just a down year for whatever reason. Um, but I think I remember telling you, I think to me, this creates more problems than solves anything. I don't see the need to sign a second baseman and move Keith over to first. So Torres led second baseman in errors last year. He had 18. Keith was second. He had 12. And now you move Keith over to first, like you were saying, where he'll probably play most of the year. I just you signed Keith in the offseason last year. You know he's part of your future, and they've said they want to play him at second base. I hate how now they say that and then they play him at a position he's not going to play in the future. Like it
No.
I wish you would improve on his skills and get him better at second base if
Hmm.
that's your long-term option instead of moving him around like this. I feel like it's going to halt his development defensively and hitting wise, he's going to be well below average of a first baseman hitter. I think maybe if he makes a big jump here, but first basemen are sluggers. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if Keith is really projected to be this, 35 home run guy. I just I don't think that does anything. And with the torque thing, I don't know. I'm kind of still on the fence too. Like I would understand keeping him, but also I understand moving off of him.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like there's now all these kind of things I feel like it just made problems signing Gleyber, to be honest. Maybe he'll be good offensively, and for right now, that's okay. But again, it's only 1 year deal. I don't see him staying here if he has a good year because Detroit's probably not going to want to pay him. And I don't know. And then I think you still have problems on the left side of the field. You have Sweeney and Young covering third and short. And I
Hmm.
think Bregman is the perfect signing here now. If you're going to get Glaber and you want to make another push this year, I think Bregman's one of the better guys you can get right now. Left field is one of the more favorable spots to hit in Comerica also. And I think Bregman will take advantage of that, even though he's used to kind of the short porch in Houston. I think that'd be a good complimentary signing to this. But for my contract grade, I have a 3 out of 10. The price isn't even I'm not that mad about. I don't see the need for the Tigers to go out and do this. I don't like it really that much. And then fit, I have 5 out of 10. Again, like
Yeah.
I was saying before, I think it makes more problems than it solves on the right side. And I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, real quick before we move on. So let's see. He had 15 home runs in 2024. So now I'm looking, and we were talking about this, how you can do this on Baseball Savant. It's kind of interesting. We all know that Comerica is not really a hitter-friendly park, but 15 home runs he had this year. At Comerica Park, he'd have nine.
Really?
So yeah, you can take out like 40%, 35% of his home runs moving to Comerica. So that's another downside, but that's how it is with any hitter that you get. They're always gonna play worse in Comerica hitting wise.
Right.
Um, yeah, but we can move on now if you wanna if you want to touch on the Rooker re-signing with the Athletics.
Yeah, this is cool. This is a fun signing. I'm a really I like seeing this. This is good stuff. 5 years, $60 million. There's a vesting option 2030. Um, can you remind me how that works again? I know I looked it up, but I already forgot. Isn't it like
Uh,
I think it's um if he reaches a certain I think it's either stats or something. It is guaranteed, or I'm confusing that with another one. But while Parker's looking that up, 5 years for $60 million. He'll be there through 2029, which I mentioned is by the time their new stadium in Vegas will be built. And I think it kind of gives A's fans somebody to watch as you look forward to that while they're playing in AAA stadium. Um, so yeah, I think they get him at a really good deal here. Rooker became one of the better DHs, one of the better hitters last year. Let's see, I wrote down in my notes. So the most Rooker will make is 15 million in 2028 through 2029, and potentially 22 million if incentives are reached in 2030. So the contract could end up reaching, I think $92 million is what I
yeah,
found
with the
out.
vestings.
Yes. And I think that's how it works. Um, but again, I mentioned this to you. That would be, even if it does reach 92, you're still at a 15 AAV over the 6 years that you would have had him, which I think is an absolute steal for a guy like Brent Rooker. He plays DH, so probably won't, injuries shouldn't be a huge issue. And I also wrote down foundational piece for the move to Vegas. It's a guy that, he was here last year for the last game in Oakland. He'll be there for I guess, 2, 3 seasons that they're going to be in Sacramento. And then he'll be there in Vegas when they move there in 2028, I think. So I think it's just a guy to look forward to watching. He's going to be there. They got him at a really good price too. And it's kind of part of this new A's identity where they're spending money and they're kind of bringing in a lot of guys to help their young core, which is starting to kind of form. So I put 10-10 for contract and fit grade. I don't have any issues with this deal, and I think it's perfect.
Yeah. Real quick with the vesting option. So a vesting option is an optional year at the end of the contract that becomes guaranteed if the player reaches certain performance incentive thresholds.
Okay, so yeah,
So I'm kind of interested if they go public with actual what the vesting option is, like if he hits 40 home runs or 30 home runs or a certain batting average. So
let's see if
I wonder
Spot
if
Rack
that.
says it. They usually, okay, so it just says. Okay, so 2030 option vest with 500 plate appearances 2029 or 900 plate appearances across 2028, 2029 or two top 10 MVP finishes in 2027
Oh,
through 2029.
I like that a lot. That's pretty good for him. Those
And
are
then
two things that he could definitely knock off.
yeah, it's top 10 in MVP I definitely think is possible. If
Mhm.
not the plate appearance one. And
Yeah.
then if it also says based on the MVP voting for the next 4 years, the vesting option can escalate by 2 million or
Wow.
$1 million based on his position too. So a lot of incentive here for Rooker.
Mhm. Yeah. Good for him. Well, first of all, before I get into why everybody online is saying that this is a fleece that Brent Rooker got fleeced and the A's did the fleecing. But I did say 10 out of 10 contract, 10 out of 10 fit. I still think it's phenomenal value. But one thing to keep in mind is so while it is 5 years, 60 mil, the first 3 years are his arbitration years. So he's not necessarily getting what was it? Was it 12? Is that 12 AAV? Yeah, 12.
Yes.
So while it is 12 AAV and that looks on paper, that looks like awesome value for the Athletics. His first 3 years are ARB, so you don't make much anyways in ARB. Like he probably would have made his first year ARB like 3 mil, and then it kind of goes up to like 8 or 10 at the most. So in terms of that, that's why it's not as amazing as people think it is, and that's why he took the deal. But the value really comes in those last 2 years where you're paying him 12 mil for his first 2 years of what should have been his free agency. So
Yeah.
that's where the value's at. And overall, just great deal. If you're an athletics fan, you gotta be over the moon on this one because I have no doubt with how he played in 23 and then how he even played at a higher level last year that he's gonna continue that. So yeah, just great for both parties.
Absolutely, absolutely. 39 home runs, I think it was.
Yeah,
I
that's
still think he's a
pretty,
little underrated. I bet if you went up to a lot of baseball fans and asked them who Brent
Mhm.
Rooker is, I don't think a lot of people could probably tell you who that is, to be honest. But better
Yeah.
get familiar with that name now.
Okay, so now I can get us started with Corbin Burnes to Arizona. So this was a 6 years, $210 million contract, which is a 35 mil AAV. First of all, I looked at this and I compared it to the Snell, which was 5 years, 182, which is 36 mil a year. I think this is a lot better than the Snell contract, honestly. You pay him a little less AAV, and he's just a lot more reliable, in my opinion. He goes deeper into games. Snell's like a 5 innings machine, while Burnes can go 6, 7, even 8 innings. So I like that. So contract rank, I said a 9 out of 10. Fit rank, I said 10 out of 10. I mean, to pair him with Gallen and a healthy Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Brandon Pfaadt, I absolutely love that. How can you complain about getting, in my opinion, top three at worst, top five pitcher in the MLB? Um, and considering last year the Diamondbacks had the best offense in terms of runs scored and OPS and a couple other offensive statistics, this is absolutely huge. With their injuries last year, their pitching, if something like that happens again and you have Corbin Burnes to kind of hold down the fort, I feel like that'd be super valuable. So
Yeah. You bring up a couple of good points there, which makes me remember what I was going to say. But so what I said, I quoted Star Wars from this. I said, "A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one." I don't think many people thought he was going to go to Arizona, um, and it does create a really good 1-2 punch between Burnes and Zach Gallen. I think that is could be one of the more underrated 1-2s going into the start of the season. And I think when those guys are at their best, they could be, like I said, one of the better combination starting pitchers there. Especially looking at it from a playoff series perspective, I think running out Burnes and Gallen game 1 and 2, you're going to be really happy with that. I actually compared it to the Max Fried deal, the other big lefty. So he signed for $218 million, and I think Arizona's pretty happy about getting Burnes for 8 million cheaper. I think I'd rather take that deal and take Burnes as well.
Mhm.
Um, and something that it does hurt a little bit is there is a player opt out after 2026. So there is a realistic
Oh,
chance
okay.
that Burnes is here for 2 years and then he's out. We'll see how it goes. I don't really know what's going to factor into that. So for that, I gave contract 8 out of 10. Still a good deal. And 2 years of Burnes, I'm not going to argue with, but you have to think of the possibility. Well, and here's the thing also. So I'll just kind of talk about this. Um, Burnes is so potentially could be gone in 2 years. Zach Gallen, I think, is heading into his final year of arbitration, so he's going to be a free agent after this year. And I believe I'm going to look it up really quick, but I think Merrill Kelly is also heading in to his last year of arbitration, unless he signed an extension.
Yeah, I thought he was older.
Yeah, it said he had 6 years of service time. Okay, so his club option got picked up for this season, and he is a free agent in 2026.
Mm.
So I think just future looking wise, I think there is a possibility after 2026, your three best starting pitchers aren't here. And, maybe Brandon Pfaadt makes a big jump here and he kind of makes squeezes himself there. But then after that, what do you got? So I think, that maybe concerns me a little bit, but I like what you were saying. For right now, this is a very good complement to one of the best offenses in the league. Even after losing Joc Pederson, they bring in Josh Naylor at first. And it still is, Corbin Carroll, who even had a down year, the Ketel Marte, Eugenio Suarez, Geraldo Perdomo, and a couple good prospects coming up also.
Mhm.
Jordan Lawler is, I think he made his debut last year. Um, there's a lot to be excited about for Arizona for right now. And I said 10 out of 10 fit as well. I think just future looking wise for the starting pitching, I get a little concerned, but I said 8 out of 10 contract, 10 out of 10 fit. I'm happy they got their ace, and it should be really fun to watch Diamondbacks next year. And I'm
Mhm.
definitely looking forward to it. So,
Absolutely. So next is Teoscar. Do you want to get us started? I feel like this is going to be short. I don't
yeah.
have much to say.
So, 3 years, $66 million. There's a 2028 club option. Yeah, this is what I thought was going to happen in our pick'em. And I think it's perfect. Teoscar loves LA. I think LA loves him too, and he was a really big part of the World Series. Um, so the contract 10 out of 10, I have no problems with that. He's a good player, definitely worth the money. The one thing I didn't wasn't a super big fan of here is so they signed Michael Conforto also. They have Andy Pajas, Tommy Edman, and Chris Taylor still kind of in your outfield, I guess, rotation. Dalton Rushing is also a guy I was thinking about. He is one of their top prospects. I'd like to see him get consistent at bats, and I think this does make it kind of hard for them to do that. But you can't be too mad at that also because it's Teoscar Hernández, one of the better options you can have in right field. So that was just my one slight gripe with this is there's a lot of young talent here that's kind of getting mixed with veterans. And it's not a big deal, but it would be fun to maybe see any Pies get more run or see Dalton Rushing get consistent ABs and all that. Because Rushing is also can play catcher, but Will Smith is still there. So, maybe you're not going to see a lot of time there. That was my one thing. But at the end of the day, it's 3 more years of Teoscar, potentially four with the club option. So I said contract 10 out of 10. Fit, I just said 8 out of 10. I just took off the 2 points for that reason. But still,
Mhm.
I think it's a really good signing overall.
I said 10-10, honestly. And I understand your gripe with the you want to let the young guys or whether it's Tommy Edman or whoever's going to be out in the outfield for them, Pages. It's the Dodgers, and at this point, their 1 through 9 is so loaded that they have so much depth. So I mean, they're starting to build on top of their starters. So that's just the point that they've gotten to. That's how good they are. So I mean, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't knock them off anything. So
And it's never bad to have more guys than not. I feel like for sure, injuries are common, and it's always good to have more than what you might think you need. And to your point, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
yeah. Okay. Well, if we want to get moving to Walker Buehler, give me 1 second. So I'm going to pull up the projected rotation for the Red Sox. So this one, honestly,
Yeah,
this is gonna be,
I'm curious to see what you got to say about this
you
one,
know,
but
I figuring with how much you like Buehler, I don't think you're gonna
oh.
like this that much. So I know it's a 1 year contract, so it's not a huge investment, but I think it's an overpay 1 year for 21 mil. I understand that he can get better and he can return to his peak, or I just don't see it happening with how horrible he was last year. Like he was arguably like a top five worst pitcher. 37, 75 innings, 1.55 whip, with a 5.38 ERA. And I know we can say like, okay, he was good in the playoffs, especially World Series. He was lights out, and that's when it matters the most. But even overall in the playoffs, he's had just below a 4 ERA. So it's not like he was lights out the whole playoffs. Um, and the 2023 injury scares me, missing the entire year. And even before that, when he got injured up until 2022, he had a 4.02 ERA that year. So I'm worried about that. And then fit. So the Red Sox, they're banking too much on it's all just looking for upside in these guys. There's too much inconsistency for me. Even with like Hauk, I know Hauk had a great year last year, but he has been horrible at times. Like a couple years ago, he was absolutely terrible. Crawford has had bad times, Bayo bad times. Like you're just hoping these guys have some upside in them. And even Crochet before last year, he was a reliever and he didn't even pitch nearly as many innings. And um, I think he's going to be good, but he does injury. I just get a little scared. I know he didn't really have any injury scares last year, but I think it's just too much banking on all these guys to bounce back to their best form. Um, and that's why I said fit 5 out of 10. I just think they needed more than what Walker Buehler brings, and that's just 21 mil that you could be spending elsewhere, like for Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, I do I get your concerns. I really do. I just think I don't so I wrote down Walker's last like kind of his like Cy Young like really good Walker Buehler was 2021. He pitched 200 innings. He had a 2.47 ERA, 5.6 F4. He had similar numbers in 2019. 2020 is obviously the COVID year. I also wrote down his postseason numbers. He's thrown nearly 100 innings in the postseason. He's got a 3.04 ERA. I think Boston is going to make the playoffs this year, so you do bring a pedigree there as well. I think looking at the 1, 2, 3 between Crochet, uh, Bueller, and Hauk, if that's how it goes, I think I would be really happy with that. I Yeah, I can't speak much to like say like I think he is gonna go back to his old form. I think I'm just kind of banking on that, and I think Boston is too. But that is kind of the nice thing about the 1 year deal also. It's like, okay, 21 million, yes, but I think 21 million is a worthy gamble in hopes you do get, Cy Young candidate Walker Buehler
Mhm.
back. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. He's gone in a year. There is a mutual option in 2026. From what I've read, mutual options are not often taken and used. So I think all things considered, you probably will be gone after this year. And I
Yeah.
think for what it is, I think 1 year of Walker Buehler at 21 million, I think is well worth the risk. And if it doesn't work out, great. Then he'll probably still pitch in the postseason. I like that a lot. And if it does, I think it could be one of the better signings in the offseason because you're signing a guy that was kind of lost in the fold and injuries and a whole lot of other things that happened to him. But at his best, he's one of the best pitchers in the league. And I think it could work out really well for them. So for contract, I understand what you were saying. I said 7.5 out of 10, a little expensive. But fit, I said 10 out of 10. Maybe that's a lot, but I really like this addition. Looking at Garrett Crochet and Walker Buehler on the same team, I think gets me really amped. Um,
Mhm.
I think I'm a little more faithful in Tanner Houck having similar numbers. I don't think there's anything to convince me that he won't have, as good or like even maybe a better year than he did last year. He had a 3.12 ERA, he pitched 178 innings. There's nothing that tells me maybe there's room to be concerned. I think he's going to keep it up. And so now you're looking at, three solid arms here. And I think that Boston's going to be very happy with that. So I don't know. I do get what you're saying, but I think it is a pretty good signing here and could work out really well for them.
So real quick before we move on, if you had to give a number, don't give like your optimistic number. Don't give like just if you had to guess what his numbers are going to be this coming year, what would you say? Give me an ERA and give me like a whip or how many innings he pitched. Just give me some
Bueller,
stats. Yes.
um, I'll say 100 and I'll go 140 innings, maybe a 3.5 ERA.
So yeah, 140 innings, 3.5. So I think if obviously if he gives that, you're happy, but that's not. I don't really see that as being much more than that's not much more value than 21 mil. That's probably right on par with 21 mil, maybe a little bit more, I guess, but 140 innings, that's still lower size. So that's why I feel like that's like best case scenario. That's
Mhm.
the kind of the way I saw it. And worst case scenario, I don't think he's gonna be bad as last year. There's no way he has a 1.55 whip,
Yeah,
but
yeah. But
I think his I think his ceiling is what you said, and I think his floor is like a 4.9 or 5. So that's kind of where I'm at. Um, yeah,
yeah, I guess I would also, if that is his, even if that was his ceiling, I would still love to have Bueller on my playoff rotation. Like, love it.
yeah.
I think Boston is definitely hoping to get there this year, kind of make that jump
Hmm.
in a tough AL East. So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, if you want to move on to our next guy.
Okay, so now Manea, so he re-signed with the New York Mets, and this was a 3-year, 75 mil contract, so 25 mil AAV. In terms of the contract, he is a little older, so I said 6 or 7-ish. Fit, my gut reaction was like to give it 10, just because I think he was the biggest reason for their success last year. And you probably would say the same thing because Lindor, I know Lindor is amazing, but Lindor, you kind of expected that. Manea, you didn't expect that as much. So that's why I said that. Before this last year, Manea, he wasn't that good. Like he was mid fours to high four ERA. So that's why I was kind of worried about that if he returns to that form. I know he did kind of tweak his mechanics a little bit, so there is if he continues that, he could definitely be good. So yeah, I'm sitting at probably 8 out of 10 fit. I still think their rotation needs so much work. I talked to you about that, but him, Peterson, Blackburn, like those guys aren't going to cut it. I think Manea is a good 2.
Yeah, so I mean, Shamanaya, like I was actually I'm a pretty big fan of this signing. I said 10 out of 10 for both contract and fit. I know you said the age, but Shamanaya had success in Oakland when he was there for a while, and then he bounced around a bit, had success in New York. So I'm really happy he's staying here. I think they found something that's good, and I think he'll be good for the next couple of years, at least for however long the contract is. I can't say I back you on this rotation not being good. So I actually think it could be one of the better ones, which might be contrary to what you're thinking in total, but Sean Manaea is the one, or even Kodai Senga as the one or two right there. And this is another one too. I said could be one of the better ones. I think there is a real possibility Manaya keeps it up and has another great season, and then we just need Senga to stay healthy, and we know what he has, and I think it could be really good. Um, and then you have David Peterson, who I'm actually a pretty big fan of also. He had a 2.9 ERA across 121 innings last season. Another good surprise for New York. And I have no, I mean, maybe it won't be as good as a 2.9, but even if you can get like a 3.5, 3.75 out of this guy, 150 innings, I think you'd be happy. And then Clay Holmes, we'll see what happens with cardiac Clay. I'm not really sure. I can't speak to the transition of bullpen or closer to like a setup guy and now into a starter. It could work out well. It might not. I don't know. But I think there is a possibility. Maybe he gives you high threes, low fours. And then there's also Paul Blackburn and Frankie Montas still here. Those guys, maybe I'm not that high on. I think Montas will give you innings, and same with Blackburn. So at the very least, they're good for that. But I think there's a possibility there's Manea, Senga, and Holmes as your kind of your front three, and I think all those guys could have good seasons. And then you have a mix of Peterson, Montas, and Blackburn kind of following. And to be honest, I'm pretty happy with that. So I think without Manea, this rotation does not look nearly as good. But with Manea, I think it's really good, which is why I love this contract. I love the fit. I think everything works out really well here. So I'm actually a very, very big fan of this, and I think the Mets have set themselves up a lot better now with this signing than were before. So
Yeah, that makes total sense, honestly, and it'll probably work out for them. Manai had no injury struggles, no issues with age thus far. He's always been a workhorse, so that is the good part of it. And yeah, for how much guys are going for now, 3 year 75 is definitely some good value. So,
mhm.
do you wanna? How about you get us kicked off with Joc
All
Pederson?
right. I think this is one of my favorite signings. Love this move by Texas. And combining it with Nathaniel Lowe being traded and signing Berger and then signing Jock, or not signing Berger, but trading for Berger. I think Texas has had one of the better off seasons so far. So it's a 2-year deal, $37 million, and the Rangers did some funky stuff with this contract. So there is a player opt-out after 2025. However, if Peterson chooses to exercise the option, the Rangers can veto it and then guarantee 2 more seasons at $37 million. So that would mean that with incentives, the 37 million can turn into 43 million. So at the max, this contract could end up being 3 years, $61 million.
Okay.
The incentives are like, I think it was Silver Slugger and like All-Star, things like that. So I really like it for that because player opt out is pretty brutal. Jock might have another really great year and decide he wants to get more money somewhere else, and he could be gone. But then like I said, Texas has that backup where they can keep him for another 2 seasons and keep a really good hitter. And I cannot believe I still feel like he had one of the most underrated seasons last year. He had 151 WRC plus, a 515 slug with 23 homers. He's probably going to platoon against righties. That's his numbers are really good like that. But I also noticed he still hits lefties quite well. He had 124 WRC plus. So I think there's a scenario where he is your everyday DH, and that still works out really well.
Mhm.
And it gives the Rangers flexibility to kind of decide what they want to do with Jock. If it's not working out after one season, and he may not opt out if he doesn't have a good year. But if he does opt out, the Rangers have the flexibility to say, "Hey, we want to keep you for 2 more years," or "Hey, we'll let you go and you can walk." But I think the upside here is like, and I know Jock is like a veteran, but I feel like this could work out so well, and a lot of people are kind of just looking by it. But now with Joc Pederson, Jake Berger, you still have Seager, you still have Simeon. Like it's one of the better offenses, like all of a sudden in the MLB, and it just is. I don't know. I'm in love with this so much. Contract, I
Mhm.
said 9 out of 10. Fit, I said 10 out of 10. I don't have much more to say outside of that, but I think it's going to work out really well for Texas.
Yeah, I completely agree, honestly. I said 8 out of 10 contract, that those 2 points I knocked off just because he's going in an age 33 season. Um, and also just because he's gonna be platoon. But other than that, like this past year was his best year in terms of OPS at 908 OPS. That's absurd. Real quick, do you know how many at bats he had against lefties? I know you said 123
Um,
plus, but
I No, I didn't. I forgot. I can pull it up if you want to keep going. I
Yeah,
didn't.
pull that up because I'm kind of interested if he had at least like 50 at bats or if that's just like 10 at bats. But because I
Yeah,
know he's very, very heavy platoon against righties. But that's no problem with the Rangers because he's gonna be the DH. Like his defense is not good. You're expecting that, but he still put up a 3 WAR with just offense. That's how amazing his bat has been. And you could easily like against a righty, obviously he's gonna play, but against a lefty, you could put in like Gashioka if the catcher. You have some other options like Ezekiel Duran or Leody Taveras. Um, honestly, I told you this. I think this offense. I think it's definitely the best in the American League, and I think it competes well with the Phillies and the Dodgers as the best in MLB. I mean, Semien, Seager, Peterson, Langford's going to go off this year. I this Their offseason, in my opinion, has been the most underrated and potentially the best out of all the teams. I would still give the edge to the Mets just because you got Soto and Manea, but the their offense is going to be so good this year. It's crazy to think that they didn't make the playoffs last year. That kind of blows my mind, but
yeah.
overall, I said fit 9 out of 10. I'm super happy with for Texas.
So I remember when I was reading this, he last season he had 37 games against lefties and 129 against righties, but it was only 32 ABs against lefties, so not a very big sample size at all. And he had 335 against righties. So yeah. What
That's
is
still not bad. I mean,
Yeah, it's
as
something.
long as he's not a liability, like if you don't have many bench guys and you need to leave him in against lefty, if it's not an automatic out, then that makes it feel better to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was 154 WRC plus against righties. So, and I did read another article, looking at all the starters in the AL West. It's very righty heavy. So I think that's also going to favor him very well. He'll probably be seeing a lot of righties in that division, which is really good for Texas. Yeah. Anything else to add on that?
No, I think we're good. I'll get us started with Christian Walker. This is another one I absolutely love for Houston. They've been looking for a first baseman for so long, honestly, and the last time they've had a good first baseman was Yuli. Jose Abreu did not pan out at all. He was horrible once he got to the Astros, and then Singleton, there wasn't really much there. So to bring in Christian Walker is massive to me. 3 years, 60 mil, I love it. I know he's old, and that's usually my biggest problem. He's going into his age 34 season, but he's shown no signs of slowing down. So I mean, you can't really you can't really knock him for his age. He put up a 3 WAR with an 803 OPS, and he always has amazing defense. I don't think his defense is going to get any worse. So I said contract 10 out of 10, fit 10 out of 10. I mean, if this was like a 4 or 5 year contract, I'd be kind of leaning towards the other side, but 3 years, 60 mil, that's awesome value. And I think there's no doubt in my mind he'll be just as good as he was last year.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with you. 10 out of 10 for both. John Singleton was not really going to cut it for Houston anymore. He was replaceable and fine, but I don't, that wasn't any long-term deal there. Something I noticed is he's played 115 games every season since 2019. That's excluding 2020, obviously. But I love that he's stays healthy and he delivers really good offense and defense. Definitely a pull hitter also, and he's a righty, so I think he's going to have a lot of home runs next year. Playing in Houston with the short porch to left. And honestly, I think this move still keeps them atop the AL West. The Mariners haven't made enough move or really any moves to convince me that they're going to do anything different than what they have been doing. Athletics, I still don't think, I think they're still a step away. Angels, maybe we're going to talk about this on an episode, but I think the Angels have kind of like a long shot chance to kind of have a decent year next year, but that's not for right now. Um, I, I think Houston can still confidently feel like the best team in the AL West, and I don't think it's particularly close. It's still Christian Walker, Jordan, Altuve, Pena, Yainer Diaz. Like, it's still a super talented team. I'm still a big fan of their rotation also. So losing Kyle Tucker here isn't going to be end all be all. And Christian Walker definitely helps with that. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for both sides for me too.
Yeah. Do you know, are McCullers should be back? I feel like he's been out forever, right? Lance
Yeah,
McCullers.
that is a guy I keep meaning to look up, but I haven't.
He's been out for so long, I feel like. But he was good when he's playing,
Yeah,
he's great. But
right. And there's still a Framber there too, and then it's Arrighetti, Hunter Brown. Yeah, they got some
dude,
guys.
Arrighetti and Brown, those two have so much upside. Like I know they were terrible at the start, weren't they? And then they both picked it up. Arrighetti had like 11 Ks at one game. Brown would put up
Right.
10 K against the Tigers.
Yeah, and then Ronald Blanco too, we're forgetting about also.
Yeah.
Oh, and
But
then Hayden Wesniewski is the new guy from Chicago also. That was in the Cut Tucker trade. So yeah, they could still be really good next year.
they got a lot of good talent there for sure.
I'm not
Um,
seeing anything on
McCullers.
Buehler's. He's not coming up in Fangraphs, so maybe he's still hurt here. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
We have to dive into that, but
Well, I mean, he might not even play into their rotation plans with what we just
right.
named off.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, it's kind of risky and you probably got to get him back to form anyway, so
yeah.
but
You want to get us started with Nathaniel Lowe?
yeah, so it's kind of an interesting deal. When I looked up the package here, I was kind of surprised it was for one reliever that Texas
Mhm.
got. Robert Garcia is who they got in return. He's 28 years old. He had a 1.5 F4 last year with a 4.22 ERA. If you look at the Fangraphs, Texas Rangers bullpen, all of their acquisitions, like where it says they got them, most of them are from 2024. So they've signed a lot of guys this offseason. Let's see if I can just kind of go through. So yeah, Robert Garcia, that was the trade. They signed Chris Martin, they signed Jacob Webb, they signed Sean Armstrong, they signed Hobie Milner. So they've got a lot of new additions here. Um, Definitely trying to revamp that bullpen. And then they do give away Nathaniel Lowe. He's got 2 years left of control. He had a 2.8 F4, 121 WRC plus 16 home runs. His estimate for 2025 is $10 million. So the way the order went here was they traded for Berger, they
Mhm.
then traded Lowe away, and then they signed Peterson. So I think this was probably in their plans after they did get Daniel Berger. And I think this was a salary clear to make room for Joc Pederson and maybe Eovaldi also. Because 10 million for Arb is definitely still a pretty good amount here. Um, I don't know. I'm kind of still on the fence about trading Lowe away. I feel like he could have been a future piece there for Texas. He's homegrown, and he's a really good hitter overall at first. But I guess they decided rather, okay, we can get Jock for 2, 3 years and then maybe let him walk as a free agent instead of letting Lowe stay under arbitration for 2 years, and then potentially letting him walk if he was going to get a big deal or something like that. Um, and then Garcia, like it's a return. It's a return for dumping off a salary. I don't have much to say about that. It's a bullpen addition. We know how important bullpen is, and I think he'll be good. I don't have much to say outside of that. So for Washington, I really like this move for Washington. I guess I haven't touched on that. I gave it an A. You add a good hitter here. They also did sign Josh Bell, so maybe Bell will DH and then Lowe will be the everyday first baseman. But you get a really good hitter with a young core coming up. Dylan Cruz, James Wood. Um, you still have CJ over there at short, and then Luis Garcia at second. A lot to be excited for in Washington, and I think Nathaniel Lowe is a really good ad here. You get him for 2 years at the very least, and then we'll see what happens after that. And there's no prospect here. There's no big name. It's just a
Mhm.
bullpen guy. So I think Washington kind of hit it out of the park here. Texas, I gave a B. Um, I don't know. I don't know if they could have gotten more, but I think maybe there's a scenario they could have instead of just one bullpen guy. And, maybe I don't know enough about Robert Garcia and I'm downgrading his abilities. But just looking at it now, nothing really jumps off to me. So the fact that it is just a salary dump, to me, for Nathaniel Lowe, I think he deserves a little bit more. So I gave him a B. But yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of moving parts going here, a lot more than it even seems with like Burger, Low, and then Jock. Initially, I was so perplexed by why the Rangers were doing it, and you kind of broke it down pretty well in terms of the ARB. So yeah, the 10 mil salary dump, and then bringing on Jake Burger, who only has a little over 2 years of service time. He's pre-ARB eligible, so he's not going to make near 10 mil until his second or third year of arbitration, so that does make sense. Still, I'd still give them like a B minus, purely because of the fact that they only got it was only a reliever, Robert Garcia. Like I think they definitely could have got a lot more than that. Even though Lowe's making 10 mil, he's still a lot more valuable than 10 mil. Um, I don't know. Giving up just a left-handed reliever just seems like it seems like more of like the type of trade where like a Bellinger where you don't want to pay him, so you
Yeah,
just
where
give
it's
up.
like $30 million or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and this is not $30 million. This is a lot different scenario. So you definitely could have got a lot more.
yeah,
So that's kind of where I'm at with that. In terms of the Nationals, I love it. I like what they're building there. Uh, they're another team that does need the offense. And to put him at first base, he's been super consistent. Just his numbers over the past um, few years, I guess he has not had an OPS plus below 100 since he came up. So
yeah.
this is his OPS plus since 2019, 107, 109, 112, 139, 114, 120. So just super consistent.
How
He's
many
gonna
home runs did he hit when he had the 139 year?
he had 27 home runs, 76 RBIs with a 302 batting average.
Yeah, so that's pretty.
He's posted at least a 2.6 WAR in each of the past three seasons. So great on them. They didn't give up much at all, obviously. So I said I'm gonna say A plus.
Yeah, 100%. I will add Berger is going to be a free agent in 2029. So he'll be in Texas for as long as I want to keep him pretty
Oh,
much.
yeah.
So it's pretty much you extend your arbitration value at first instead of it ending in 2 years, it ends in I guess four. And then you use the money, probably you use the money that you would have paid Low to maybe go and get Joc or maybe go and sign Eovaldi. So I can see what they were doing, but I think like we were both saying, probably could have got a little more for Low here.
It just seems like unnecessary movement. I like moving guys around and bringing in Burger. You don't know what Burger's going to bring. Whereas Lowe has, like I've been saying, I know Burger's likely going to be good,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
but
would you
having
know what
Lowe
you
be
have
that,
with Low, pretty
yeah,
much.
you know
Yeah,
what you're going to get for
yeah.
sure. And then bringing Burger in, you never know. I mean, he's still going to have 20 home runs at least, I would say, but it's just there's too much going on
Hmm.
just to save that what like $7 million.
Yeah,
Um,
whatever. And maybe he just wasn't in their long-term plans or something like that. But yeah.
yeah. So I'll get started with the old Tiger, Justin Verlander. So Justin Verlander signed with the Giants on a 1 year, 15 mil contract. When I first saw this, it made me kind of sad. I still had some hope that I was going to see him with the English Dion again, but I guess it is what it is. It's a business. Contract, I said 7 out of 10. If he's healthy, he's going to have a 3.5, 3.6 ERA, in my opinion. I think he's going to be good. I know he's old, but before his last year, everybody said he aged like fine wine, and then injuries hit, and he kind of had a rough year last year. But I think it's important to keep in mind that he had a Cy Young in 2022. So he's 2 years removed
He won the
from,
Cy Young that year.
yeah,
I was
18
looking
and
at
4,
his numbers earlier, and I was like, wow, he had a great season that year. But I didn't know he won the Cy.
1.75 ERA with a .829. Those both led the league. Like phenomenal year. And then even in 2023, 3.22 ERA. So there's no doubt in my mind if he's healthy, he's going to be a great pitcher. That's why I do like that. But in terms of fit, I said 7 out of 10 again. And the only reason I didn't do higher than that with all this praise that I'm giving him is they missed out on Burns, which I think would have been
They missed out
huge.
on every big pitcher, pretty much.
Yeah. It- they missed out on everybody. Snell, I just feel like they so badly need a good two. Like they have Logan Webb, awesome. Logan Webb is a great pitcher. He's going to give you 200 innings every year. He's the one. And then I told you about this too, kind of similar to the Mets. I am not very confident with the rest of the rotation. Robbie Ray, 4.7 ERA last year. He was terrible. Jordan
Pitched,
Hicks
he's
last year.
pitched 31 innings the past 2 years, Robbie Ray.
Yeah, so I guess that 4.7 is that's 30, yeah, 30.2 innings it says. So I mean,
Yeah,
you have no idea what you're gonna get from him. I know he won a Cy Young a long time ago. That was kind of a fluky Cy Young, I feel like. And then you have Hicks, 4.1 ERA with, and then Harrison 4.5, and now you're bringing in Verlander and hoping he can be that maybe two starter. And he definitely can, like I said, if he's healthy, he can do that. But that does scare me. Um, yeah, I just think they needed more, and they could still go out and get Flaherty, but that rotation is not enough. And you told me this to compete with the other big dogs in the NL West. So
Yeah, Flaherty would actually be pretty good to get right here. But looking so like with Robbie Ray, like I think the best case scenario is probably like a 3.75. That's absolute best. And I don't know how confident I feel in that.
yeah.
Um, but then like you were saying, it's Verlander, Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, and none of these guys really jump off the books and say, "Oh yeah, that's good." And then I was
Hmm.
like, okay, maybe they have some arms coming up, but it's Carson Wisenhunt, who's their org number three, and Mason Black, who's org number eight. Neither of them are top 100 guys. They're both in AAA. I think one or the other had made his debut. I forgot which one it was. But like, okay, maybe you bring one of those guys up and they do okay, but still it's like, yeah, the big picture here is you have the Dodgers who probably have one of the best rotations we've ever seen all time. The Padres still have, as of right now, they have Cease, Michael King,
Hmm.
Yu Darvish, Musgrove, I think will be back eventually. So it's like, yeah, and then the Diamondbacks go and get Corbin Burnes. They still have Zach Gallen and a couple other guys. It's like, man, this really like it really highlights some concerns for me with San Francisco. And then you kind of get into, okay, is really Adames enough to make your offense be able to compete with
Hmm.
this too? And I'm diving in a lot more than here, just a Verlander signing. I said 7 and 6 for the contract and the fit, respectively. I don't know. It's fine. Like it's kind of like what you were saying. I don't like it could work out. It could be pretty good, but at the same time, it's Justin Verlander who's 42 now, coming off injury and stuff like that. It's hard for me to imagine maybe another really, really great season from him. But if he's serviceable, it works out okay then. But yeah, I mean, even if I don't know if the Giants are going to make the playoffs, but even if they do, I don't have any confidence in that rotation and even maybe their offense that much to put up a good fight, and maybe they won't for that reason. But I guess we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. So I guess that'll wrap up our 14th episode. I'm really hoping that this next episode we'll be talking about a 5-year contract with Bregman and the Tigers or a 4-year contract with Santander.
Hopefully something.
Something. I want something. Something to cling on to other than Torres. That's not going to do it for me.
And Alex.
Other than that, we thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Loose and Groovy Show.